Poor pilot mental health can have literally lethal consequences. Human beings can't actually fly. I might do something that I, on another day, and others might judge as stupid. 0 hours contracts for airline pilots is a disgusting, a deplorable, and a downright dangerous practice. This is not an easy fix. This is not something where we can tick a box marked bananas and yoga and claim to have fixed the problem. Some of these are systemic issues. I'm really sorry, but these people are narcissists and probably sociopaths. In my experience at least, we seem to indulge in a bit of corporate gaslighting. That's one step away from full-blown domestic violence. Thank you, Alison. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, as you heard, my name's Owen, and that there is what I am. And I'm an independent contractor. I mostly work in the classroom at the L3 Harris London Training Centre. However, what I was an airline pilot for about 17 years or so. I was a TRI, TRE, CRMT, one or two other acronyms. And that was all up until March of 2020, when, as you heard, the airline that I work for finally ran out of money. I was also someone who twice in that career was grounded, owing to poor mental health. The official diagnosis was depression with anxiety. It seems probable now that there was some PTSD thrown in there as well. And I'm still on antidepressant medication. I'm still in therapy, but I'll spare you the rest of the gory details. Suffice it to say that it has presented me with an insight and a set of opinions, I don't think unique, but certainly very personal, into well-being, mental health in aviation and in pilots. So, to start with the question, why is pilot mental health important? And the glib answer to that question is this: human beings can't actually fly. Human beings are not genetically, biologically equipped for flight. We think our way around that problem using our brain. More specifically, this bit of it. That bit that is peculiar to the human race. It has our unrivaled capacity for thinking and calculating and reasoning and solving problems, and an apparently unique ability to imagine things which may not physically exist. That's how we fly. But, lest we forget, we are 99.4% genetically similar to the chimpanzee. It follows that most of our brain function is held in common with a chimp. Chimps have a brain that looks after their body on automatic. They have personalities. They have emotional reactions that dictate their behavior in stressful circumstances, and human beings have all of that as well. Chimpanzees, though, can't fly. As far as we can tell, they don't want to, particularly. I'm not counting the Wizard of Oz. As far as we can tell, they don't want to, but humans do, and humans can, only for as long as we have some of our brain activity going on up there in the human brain section. So let's take this, frankly, somewhat oversimplified model and break it down and in the form of these two sections of the brain. Both in need of resources, energy, if you like, that which the brain needs to do what it needs to do. And the human brain is full of resources there, and that's good because we need it to do our thinking for us. And as long as we keep those resources above a certain minimum level, we can do utterly crazy things like go flying. There's always a demand for energy, though, from the chimp brain, which must be met because that bit of our brain is what keeps us alive. So that's going to place a limit on the human brain resources. But that, if you like, is a diagram illustrating a pilot in good mental health. A nice even distribution of resources in the human brain, enabling him or her to think and do the flying thing, and in the chimp brain, keeping him or her alive. Now, many things can impact directly on the availability of those human brain resources. I call them category 1. Obvious example, drugs and alcohol. Massive impact on those resources and hence our human performance. But that's a known issue. I wouldn't say it's not a problem, but it is at least one we know about. So for now, well, we can safely ignore that and think about some of the other things that might affect my mental health as a pilot. Let's go way, way back. Do you remember all those years ago, the early part of 2020, when COVID-19 was a big thing? And this novel virus spreading its way around the world and, causing some damage. And that is likely to inspire in me some strong emotions. Now, strong emotions are a category 2 impediment. They increase chimp brain demand, which indirectly limits human brain resources. If those strong emotions now start to impact on my sleep or otherwise upset my circadian rhythms, those two things have a direct impact, category 1. Those things in combination might lead to the phenomenon known as fatigue. That's category 2. You see where I'm going. Now perhaps my motivation to be up and physically active is dented somewhat. Maybe I start to make poorer choices about my diet and nutrition. Lockdown starts to kick in. It becomes apparent how little agency I have in this situation. A lack of agency can produce a profound psychological impact. Aircraft are being grounded. None of this is within my control. Airlines are losing money. Pilots are losing their jobs. This is going to create in me quite a bit of anxiety. It threatens my livelihood. It may even make me question my life choices to this point. The whole thing is very stressful. And all the while, those human brain resources are dwindling and getting precariously close to that basic minimum level below which I cease to be able to fly. And if anything else were to come along, a sudden injection of extra stress, for example, it's quite possible I will be entirely incapacitated. Incapacitated to the extent that I might do something that I, on another day, and others, might judge as stupid, idiotic, brainless, as it were. Something like not deploying the landing gear when trying to land. And of course that happened April of 2020 to Pakistan Flight 8303. Just in case anyone in the room is not aware, it touched down not on the wheels but on the engines. Both were fatally damaged, and during the subsequent missed approach, both failed and the aircraft crashed. Whether or not airline pilots are subject to greater stresses and impediments to their mental health than people in other professions is a matter for some debate. The point about pilot mental health is this: poor pilot mental health can have literally lethal consequences. Despite the fact that we kind of know that, and we know about all of these issues as well, in my experience, the general attitude is one of, yes, and that's your problem. That's on you, the individual, to be aware of all of that and to take the appropriate steps to manage and mitigate their effects. That's outside of aviation as well, this general attitude that says your mental health is your responsibility as an individual. Now, I've thought about why that might be, and here's where I get a bit philosophical. I think that all of us as individuals retain a concept that there is such a thing as I, the self, me, my mind perhaps, I, however you express that in your chosen language. I exist outside of, the physical realm, like even my own body. I might break my leg, but I'm still me. I might get liver disease. That does not impact on who I am. I am this irreducible, incorruptible thing that exists outside of the, confines of the laws of physics. Except, no serious person these days denies that my mind, my self, my hopes, dreams, ambitions, and memories all consist entirely within the brain. The brain is like the leg or the liver. It's an organ of the body, and it can malfunction. But that is a scary thought. I am frightened by the thought that I may not have as much control over my mind, and hence my behavior, as I would like to have, or perhaps as I feel I should. And in my fear, I seek to reassure myself that I am not like those other people. They are different from, perhaps inferior to me. I reserve the right to judge them, maybe even morally. After Pakistan 8303, I spoke to lots of pilots, privately, who said that in their opinion that crew were just idiots, stupid. It's laughably stupid to not deploy the landing gear when you're trying to land. Just a couple of weeks ago, Joseph Emerson, an off-duty pilot, sat on the jump seat on the flight deck of an Alaskan Airlines 737, attempted, he was fortunately unsuccessful, but attempted to shut down both engines in flight by pulling on the fire handles. Do we regard him as a fellow human being suffering from acute mental health difficulties and exhibiting extreme behavior as a result, or do we seek to remove him from the rest of us? He's an idiot, he's a drug addict, he's a murderer. Certainly that's what the FBI has charged him with. Even at the level I would submit of regulation. After Germanwings 9525 was deliberately flown into the Alps in 2015, a lot of legislation was precipitously rushed through, one bit of which mandated that all new pilots must be psychologically screened prior to employment. Now, every psychologist that I've ever spoken to agrees that we can assess your psychological state now, in this moment, but I can't predict if you're going to become suicidal, let alone homicidal, a year, 5 years, 10 years from now. So the only way that that legislation makes sense, at least insofar as preventing Germanwings 9525, is if you believe that a homicidal or suicidal tendency is inherent in the character. Those people are different from us. They are flawed, morally deficient, perhaps. And we can detect who they are using the magic of psychology. It permeates everything. Even when we profess the opposite, we say things like, it's okay not to be okay. And I said it like that because if we don't back it up with action, it gets pretty vacuous. Example, I'm a pilot and I phone the boss and I say, awfully sorry, can't come into work today, I'm not okay. Very well, then we will not pay you. I'm sorry? Well, you only get paid for the hours that you fly. If you're not at work, you're not getting paid. How long are you going to be not okay? I don't know, but I'm not okay. Okay, you're also not getting paid. I submit, ladies and gentlemen, that the practice of only paying pilots for the hours they fly, 0 hours contracts for airline pilots, is a disgusting, a deplorable, and a downright dangerous practice, because we are compelling pilots to come to work when they're not okay. But I wonder if all of us, all right, I know I am guilty from time to time of saying it's okay not to be okay when I mean as long as it does not affect or inconvenience or cost me in any way. Of course, organizations look after the well-being of their employees. They have to. And normally that takes the form of advice and information. Here's some things that you can do. Note, again, the responsibility is on you, the individual. You know, if you are struggling with your mental health, maybe, and forgive me, but maybe take up yoga. Maybe eat more bananas. Go for a walk, practice meditation. If you're still struggling, then clearly it's because you didn't do enough of that. But if all you do is provide all the help in the world that people have to come and seek, it may very well be an ineffective strategy for 2 reasons. One is you have to have the organizational culture to back it up. By way of analogy, let's imagine I had an acquaintance and I say, look, I basically don't care about you. I'd rather you didn't bother me. Occasionally I do need to use you to get done what I need to get done, but other than that, you're basically an inconvenience. Oh, but if you're ever struggling, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm probably not going to be their first phone call. Similarly, if your pilots are under the impression that the company, with a capital C, is out to get them, then of course they're not going to avail themselves of the pilot peer support program that the company has put in place. That's one reason, but the other has to do, I think, with the nature of mental illness itself. And here I'm really talking about depression and anxiety, and actually I'm really talking about me. So, March of 2020, I lost my job as an airline pilot. But 6 weeks before that, in January of that same year, my father passed away. And I know it was not a good year. He was 71, he'd had cancer. And it just so happened I had a week off in January, and he died right at the beginning of that week, which was very considerate of him. But after that week, being very much not okay, I just went back to work. Knowing everything that I know, I told virtually no one at work that this had happened even. I certainly didn't put my hand up and say, I'm not okay, ask my superiors for more time off, ask for a lighter workload, ask to be put in touch with the peer support program, nothing like that. Why not? Well, at least partly because that's the nature of depression. At least it is for me, and I don't think I'm alone. Depression preys on my natural sense of inadequacy. It amplifies it. You are not worthy of help. You do not deserve help because your struggle is not legitimate. You're just being a weakling. Suck it up and get on with it. Stop being so pathetic. Stop being such a coward. That's depression. And then anxiety normally chips in with, what if everyone were to find out? What will your superiors say? What might happen? What if you can't cope? What if it turns out you've made a tragic mistake in getting this far in the first place? What if, what if, what if? That's anxiety. People in that state don't put their hands up and ask for help. The people who are struggling the most are the least likely to seek the help. And it follows that the ones who are actually availing themselves of the help may not be the most in need, but that's a debate for another day. Fundamentally, maintenance of one's mental health comes down to trace amounts, at least, of a basic commodity: self-esteem, self-worth, or if you like, self-respect. Now, I'll be the first to admit I'm really bad at this. I struggle really hard to generate my own self-respect. Why do you think I'm here? Why do you think I flew all the way down to Portugal just for the privilege of speaking to you good people for 20 minutes or so that someone might say something nice to me afterwards and I'll feel temporarily better about myself? Okay, that's my mindset. I do not recommend it. That said, I do take issue with those people who would push the opposite extreme, the ones who claim that respect from others is somehow an irrelevance. You've seen these people. They are 10 a penny on the internet. They say really helpful things like, only you can make your dreams come true, no one else will do it for you. Don't wait for someone to help you because it will never happen. And words to that effect. Yeah, I'm really sorry, but these people are narcissists and probably sociopaths. Narcissistic sociopaths assume that they're right. They assume that no one else matters, and they assume, therefore, that they are entitled to tell everyone else how to think, which is, coincidentally, how they think. But it's false. For every normal, functioning human being, self-respect must be allied with and bolstered by the respect from others. So the question remains outstanding: to what extent does the airline industry respect its airline pilots? Now, I don't think I'm addressing the vast majority of people in this room, because we, I'm sorry to say, are not the airline industry. In that conception, the airline industry is in the hands of the money men. You know, the ones who regard pilots as a necessary but very expensive inconvenience. Do I really need two of them at the front of the aeroplane just to move it around? Can't I get away with one? Who would regard pilots basically as unproductive. Overpaid peacocks, glorified taxi drivers who should stop reporting fatigue and just go the extra mile. That's not a respectful environment, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to be asking pilots to draw on their own reserves of self-respect. Now, in the training world, I think there are things we can do, and I'm so pleased that before this presentation was a set on EBT, I have to say I'm a convert, at least on principle. Because when we train the non-technical competencies, what are we doing? Helping pilots maintain their human brain, chimp brain balance in order to make them better pilots. Well, it follows that it can also help maintain good mental health. For example, even if you don't have the right set of observable behaviors, we can look at communication and we can say that someone who's good at that is someone who listens actively and demonstrates understanding when receiving information. That's a good tip for everyday life, that. Same if you've got problems to solve and a decision to make. Do you monitor, review, and adapt your decisions as required? What about workload management? That's a potentially huge source of stress which can impact on your mental health as well as on your performance on the flight deck. And in both cases, we would hope that someone offers and accepts assistance, delegates when necessary, and asks for help early. So, by reinforcing these behaviors in our pilots, we are helping them to maintain their levels of self-respect and thus their mental health, if we do so with positivity. Whether you've got EBT in place or not, what is the pilot's perception of training? Do pilots genuinely say, oh good, a sim detail on my roster, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to this. Because every time I go for some sort of training detail and I exhibit these non-technical competencies, I get praise and encouragement and maybe even reward, and I will always leave feeling better about myself than when I went in. Is that the pilot perception? Or is the pilot perception of training that? The best I can hope for is that it's over with quick, and I get a short list of my failures and mistakes and personal shortcomings. We should be building pilots up. So I merely pose the question, to what extent are we actually putting them down and making them feel worthless? If we use an in-house event for training purposes, to what extent are we careful to avoid damaging the reputation of the people involved? Just in their day-to-day lives, to what extent are pilots able to meet their basic needs? Food, water, fresh air, exercise? To what extent are their behaviors monitored? The CVR, the FDR, flight data monitoring, and increasingly in the online sphere, by the public, even by their own employer. To what extent are pilots treated as individuals? Or is the closest they get to being treated as an individual human with individual needs their own personal staff number? And then the industry goes on to dictate to them every aspect of their life, where you can go, when you can go there, whom you can see, even what you can wear. And of course, when and where you can sleep. When being the operative word, every minute of your time as a pilot is accounted for. And not just your time at work, your time off is recorded and budgeted for. All of your time is monitored. And of course, it's a well-documented fact that we isolate pilots from meaningful contact with their family and their friends. I'm sorry, but in a large organization, you won't fly with the same crew twice, so colleagues don't really count as friends. Now that list is taken from a much larger list promulgated by the United Kingdom's Crown Prosecution Service, defining what they call coercive control. That's one step away from full-blown domestic violence. In other words, if an individual were exhibiting these behaviors towards their partner, we would be building a case for domestic abuse. And I haven't got to the big one yet, economic abuse, including coerced debt. This industry wants highly trained and qualified pilots to operate its aircraft, but it seems unwilling to fund that training. So it places all of the financial responsibility, all of the financial risk, and huge amounts of personal debt on the aspiring pilots just to get the qualification needed to apply for the job. I'm sorry, but that's coerced debt by any sensible definition. Over the years, our efforts to raise training standards has involved making more and more extra courses that go beyond the basic commercial license, which the ATOs then have to deliver, but which the trainees themselves have to fund. We have placed financial barrier after financial barrier in the path of aspiring airline pilots, and then, in my experience at least, we seem to indulge in a bit of corporate gaslighting. Overcoming those barriers demonstrates your perseverance and your can-do attitude and your tenacity. Until such time as the industry is willing fully to fund the training that it needs its pilots to have. And I don't just mean the lucky few, and I'm afraid I certainly don't mean the very divisive practice of only offering that benefit to a few based on their gender. I mean to everyone who has the capability and the capacity and the desire to do the job. We're perpetuating this cycle. Ladies and gentlemen, pilot mental health is important. I think it's equally important that we acknowledge what we're up against. This is not an easy fix. This is not something where we can tick a box marked bananas and yoga and claim to have fixed the problem. Some of these are systemic issues. But things are moving in the right direction. You know, I'm stood here talking about pilot mental health, and there's nothing special about me. Those conversations are happening in a way that they weren't very recently. So the needle is moving. I think it needs to move further and arguably faster, but at least it's moving. And some of the smartest people in the world work in aerospace, and many of them are here in this building. So of course solutions are possible if there is the will. And solutions are necessary when you take account of every individual human being: pilots, cabin crew, air traffic control, engineers, ground crew, airport staff, airline staff, regulatory staff, every individual human that works in this industry. You make proper account of their well-being and their mental health needs. You end up with a happier airline industry. And that's a more productive airline industry. And that is ultimately a safer airline industry. Surely that is the common goal of all of us. Thanks very much for listening.